Most relationship problems are caused by this, and most people don't even realize it. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mind Engineer community. Here, Tommy Walker sharing insight and tools to help you start leading your life in a different way and being able to, from there, connect with others and lead others in a different way too. So today I want to talk about one of the main things that is causing problems in relationship, whether it is with friends, with family, at work, it doesn't matter, but is one of the biggest things that is getting in the way in relationships. And it has to do, very basic, with communications. One of the big problems there is that people don't realize that communication is mostly based on what we are not saying. I know it sounds weird, but studies have proven that more than 50%, 55% of communications is non-verbal. It's meaning body language. Sorry, it's body language. 55% of communication is body language. 37%, I think it was 38%, I think it was, is tone, the tone you use. And only 7% has to do with the words that you use. So 7% words, 38% more or less is the tone, and 55% is the body language. So what happens a lot is that people get into discussions, into fights, and they don't even realize what's going on, and they say that the other person started it, or they try to blame it on somebody else, but they're not really realizing how they are coming to the conversation. Because if body language is 55% and I'm pissed, whether it is with a person I have to talk to or I'm pissed at life, when I'm going to talk to this person, I'm going to show them my anger, whether I want to try to cover it up, whether I'm not even aware of it. A lot of people are not even aware of what's going on. They're going to communicate their anger. And what happens with a lot of people, and I'm going to imagine that it has happened to you in the past, suddenly, haven't you ever, with your parents, with a friend, if you have, kids, that they were in a bad mood, and the first thing you start thinking is, what did I do wrong? What did I say or do that they're behaving that way towards me? And the mind starts filling in the blanks, thinking that we did something wrong. Hasn't this ever happened to anyone out there, where suddenly we are taking responsibility for other people's, how they're behaving, how they're acting, how they're feeling? So what the mind does, it starts filling in the blanks. When I see somebody upset, I might take responsibility. If I see somebody sad, I might think that maybe I did something wrong. So if I'm walking down the street and I don't even know the person, of course, I'm not going to take responsibility. But if it's a loved one, a friend of mine, somebody's at home and I'm seeing them, they're in a bad mood, normally we tend, our mind to take responsibility of what's going on. So the other way around, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, I'm not even aware of my emotions or feelings, and I want to talk to somebody, normally those emotions are going to start showing up to the other person. The other person is going to feel what I'm feeling, and they're going to start taking responsibility. So as I was saying at the beginning of this live, is most relationship problems are caused by this. It has to do with communications, and I'm going to add the disconnect from our emotions. Because if I'm in a bad mood and I have to offer this talk, I got to talk to one of you guys, I might say, hey, you know what, guys, I'm going through a really shitty day. I just found out this. I just had a problem with somebody outside, with my neighbor. I'm in a bad mood. Just to let you know, it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with something that happened to me. Now your mind is not going to be allowed, in a way, to take responsibility, thinking like, oh, did I do something wrong? Is Tommy expecting something from me? I'm not giving to him, whether it's a friend at work or whatever, or even a partner. The mind works that way. It starts taking responsibility, or it starts communicating what we're feeling, not what we're trying to communicate. So even if I want to tell somebody, I want to set a boundary, if I'm in a bad mood, if I'm, feeling sad, if I'm feeling anything negative, when I communicate, I'm not going to communicate the best way, because my body language is going to take over and my tone is going to show what I'm feeling. So again, more than 90% of communication is non-verbal. So when we start understanding that, next time when you speak to somebody and they might get defensive, instead of you trying to prove yourself, trying to excuse yourself, trying to do whatever, it's saying, hey, 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 what did just happen? Did I say something or do something that, or did something that bothered you? Right? We start checking the other person. How many times have we done that? Checking more than try to defend ourselves. Normally, we try to defend or we attack back, but we're not realizing that we're just escalating the problem. Instead, the idea is to stop a second and say, hey, what's going on here? Or if I have to have a difficult conversation with somebody, start with, how am I feeling right now? What's going on within me, my emotions? So what am I going to bring to this conversation? Because again, you're going to bring to the conversation whatever is bothering you. And normally what happens many times in any type of relationship, the truth is not spoken. So when the truth is not spoken, what happens? I communicate that it's bothering me that I'm not being able to communicate something to you. And I might blame it on you, saying like, oh, you get irrationally, you have a fit, you start screaming, you start swearing, you start behaving like this. That's why I cannot tell this to this person. But then when I come to the communication, I come with those things within me and I show them with my body language, with the tone. And then I tell myself that the other person is overreacting or is behaving like this. Because of them, it has nothing to do with me. But I gotta start realizing what is going on within me. What is my emotional state? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? We go back to always the same questions as a starting point. There's much more, but is how am I feeling right now? I need to talk to, this friend of mine, Paul, because he did something that I didn't like. Okay, how am I feeling? I'm angry. Okay, let's deal with the anger first before we project that to the other person, because then the other person is going to shut down or going to start getting defensive and the relationship is going to go to hell. How many relationships have been destroyed because maybe I said something that I didn't mean, or I overreacted, or I couldn't handle my emotions? And that happened to many times, that many relationships were hurt, were even destroyed because I wasn't being able to handle my emotions correctly and I wasn't be able to communicate correctly. So one of the biggest things I want you guys to take from this is that communication is not just the words that you're saying, because who hasn't in the past rehearsed what you were going to say to somebody, the words, but you never tested, you never checked how you were feeling, how you were from a 1 to 10 scale, feeling anger, stressed, anxiety, I don't know, disappointment. And that's what you're bringing to the conversation. So people spend hours maybe putting together a conversation with somebody, measuring the words that they're going to say. But again, guys, only 7% of your words are going to really affect that conversation. 7%. But we can spend lots of minutes or even hours running over our head how we're going to conduct ourselves in this conversation with somebody, when actually we got to deal with the tone and we got to deal with our body language. And most of the times our body language, it's not something that we control, it just comes out. So how can we kind of deal with our body language is first understanding, how am I feeling? How am I feeling with what Paul did? Oh, I feel angry. Okay, why do I feel angry? Right? Or I can go even deeper, release the anger first so that I can see what's underneath. As I've shared many times, underneath the anger, there's always something else. It could be disappointment. It could be fear. It could be sadness. Oh, I'm angry at Paul because he did something to me that he wasn't supposed, or, I feel that, he doesn't care for me. Okay. How does that make me feel about myself? That I'm not important. So the important thing, as I always say, is what's the narrative you're telling yourself? When we start doing all of this, releasing the anger, being able to regulate our nervous system, what happens is I'm able to communicate better the tone and the body language, not the words. The words are not the problem, guys. Although they can be, don't get me wrong, if I say something really bad to somebody, it's going to trigger them. But most of the times when I'm trying to keep it together, when I'm trying to use nice words to communicate, that has very little impact in the other person getting triggered. Because again, it could be my tone that I might not be aware of, or it can be my body language. And you don't need to be a body language expert to be reading somebody else. We pick that. When we call it energy, it could be that we're reading the other person's facial expressions. We understand how the other person is feeling, even if the other person is not saying it. And that's one of the biggest things that I do. I can feel what another person is feeling with the words that you're using, even if they're not talking about the emotions. Even if they're not talking about emotions, I can feel what they're feeling because I've been practicing that a lot with myself, with other people. And that's something that can be practiced. But we got to stop, go within, and start exploring our inner world. Because the only way to be able to impact our life and the life of others in a positive way, we need to start learning these things, communication skills, emotion intelligence, self-awareness. There's several things that I've been talking about that helps us start becoming leaders in our life and helping others around us. So remember that again. More than 90% of communication is non-verbal. Body language around 55, 38% has to do with the tone that you use, and 7% are the words that you say. So instead of practicing so much the words that you're going to use in a conversation to set a boundary, to ask for what you need, to tell somebody that what they did wasn't very nice, that they didn't do something that you were expecting, maybe you did something for somebody else and they didn't respond as you like to, being able to communicate these things, to be able to get to know each other. I work lots with couples, and many times what happens is one couple is expecting something from the other, but they're not saying it. You know why? Shame, guys. This is another conversation I'm going to have another time, but it's shame. Asking for what you want has made you feel shame as a kid. Whenever you ask for something, not all the time, but many times, oh, you're selfish, you're always thinking about yourself, whatever phrase that you heard from your parents, you started learning that your needs were bad, your needs were not important. So now asking, communicating, makes it very difficult because I'm feeling shame. So that's another thing that I want to bring, and we got to go deeper with this, but is dealing with what's going on within me, my emotions, and recognizing if I feel shame, if I don't want to feel rejected, because not wanting to ask for what I need has to do as a protective mechanism because I don't want to feel rejected. I don't want to feel shame. So I work with so many people. The other day, a guy was telling me, oh, but Tommy, the other person, when I'm doing something to them, they should realize that that's exactly what I'm expecting from them. I'm like, why should they know that? It's like, yeah, that person should know that I'm telling them that I want the same thing done to me. And I'm like, okay, I get it, that that's what you're wanting. Is that working for you? And he's like, no, I'm not getting what I want for several years now. So then you're going to keep doing exactly what you're doing, expecting the other person, oh, but if I ask the other person to give me that, that's going to put them in a place of, they're going to feel obliged, and I don't want that. So again, what he's saying is, I don't want to expose myself and be rejected, so I'm going to normalize it. I'm going to logically explain that the other person has to do it for me, and if they don't do it, they don't care. And we make up all these stories in our mind, guys, about what somebody else is thinking, wanting or not wanting, because of our own unresolved issues. And the mind is amazing in blaming somebody else instead of really going within and say, okay, what's really going on within me? And that's the idea with this. So again, remember that communication is not what you think it is. 7% words, 38% is tone, and 55 body language. So start dealing with your own emotions, what's going on within you, because no matter the words that you use, you're going to get across your emotions. And if there is fear, if there is anger, if there's resentment, if there is any type of emotion the person might pick up with your body language, they're going to get defensive and the conversation is going to go sideways. And that's why so many times friends find it very difficult to have these difficult conversations because they go negative, they go bad. Because again, I cannot ask what I want. I got to blame you for whatever. And you cannot ask for what you want. You got to blame me for something. And that's what destroys communication and relationships. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you start thinking about this to start trying to understand where you're at, how you're handling yourself in communications, how you're feeling deeper down, dealing with your own emotions, emotion intelligence to find that balance between head and heart. Balance both. It's not one or the other. It's both that we got to find a balance to be able to start working and becoming better at it. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this.